there's construction going on outside. What's up mga kababayan? Welcome to another video. Today, let's take a break from our usual psych content and talk about something that a lot of people have been asking me. If you haven't seen any of my videos, I was born in the Philippines, I grew up in China, and then I went to the US for college. So this video is about the highs and lows of my time as an international student in the US. Of course, depending on where you attended college and where you're from, you're going to have very different experiences. For me, I attended a college in a small town in the Midwest. It was very small for me because I grew up living in Manila and Beijing, so that was a huge culture shock for me. But by God's grace, I made it out alive. Anyway, I'm talking too much, so let's just start the video. I'm actually wearing my college t-shirt, but you can't see it. Sorry. So the first high is food. This is the most important, right? Even in the small town where I attended college, there was actually different types of food. When I went to the US, it was actually my first time trying out authentic Vietnamese, Mexican, Ethiopian, and Southern American food. So if you're into different cuisines, this is definitely an experience that you'll get to have in the US. Plus, they also serve in bigger portions, so there's always leftovers afterwards. The low about food in the US is it is extremely unhealthy. There is a ton of preservatives in American food. There's some ingredients in the US that are actually banned in other countries. Canned fruits and vegetables are also much cheaper than fresh produce. And of course, as a college student, because you don't have a lot of money, you'll always choose the cheaper option. But of course, that comes at a price of your own health. As a student, I actually worked in the college dining hall, so I spent a lot of time in the kitchen where they prepared food for the students. And all I did as a student chef was open up plastic bags of pre-cut vegetables and potatoes and pre-buttered garlic bread. I was like, oh my gulay, there's no real gulay here. That was really sad and disappointing because that's the type of food that they were serving us. But unfortunately, that's the fastest way to feed 2,000 students per day. But again, it comes at a price. My first 2 years in the US, I gained like 7 kilograms. And mind you, I work out and exercise at least 4 times a week. So I had to do a major detox diet when I graduated. Second is travel. Road trips are very common in the US. I've done 3-hour road trips, 8-hour road trips, 18-hour road trips, and they're always so fun because there's so many sights to see along the way. Most of us have probably seen at least one Hollywood movie, and one of the best feelings is being able to go to those places where those movies were filmed. It feels like you're experiencing the movie for yourself. Like I sat down at the Met steps and ate something, not yogurt, but just like in Gossip Girl, I walked around Central Park, Times Square, Hollywood, Las Vegas, Golden Gate Bridge. The low about travel and transportation in the US is that public transportation is kind of horrible. But that's also me growing up in bigger cities where public transportation was very common. Public transportation in bigger cities in the US are okay, but definitely not in small towns. When I was a freshman, my friend that was a senior actually told me to make friends with people that had cars. I didn't take that seriously until like my second year. So my freshman year, I was stuck on campus 80% of the time, and it was very isolating. So to be able to enjoy your time, you really need to have a car or to have nice friends who will take you to places. And now the last one is cultural diversity. Just like with the food, the US is very diverse in people. Living in the US for about 4.5 years, I met people from Indonesia, Ghana, Nigeria, Germany, fellow Filipino TCKs, Mexico, Pakistan. But getting to meet a diverse group of people, it really just widens your perspective on the world. Now I appreciate cultural diversity so much more because of my friends or the people that I met there. Even if we have different cultural backgrounds, the key is to always understand one another, because cultural diversity isn't a weakness, but it's a strength. The low about cultural diversity is racism. Racism. Cultural diversity is never and isn't the low, but it's the narrow-minded people. On my Instagram, I wrote a post to the US where I said my experience there was both beautiful but also traumatic. The racism that I saw, that I learned about, that I experienced was definitely the most traumatic and hardest part of living in the US. I'm sure you've seen those Karens on social media that tell people to go back to your home country or speak English.
I love every country, but when they come to America, it would be nice if they spoke English.
Too bad for
That's
you.
not racist.
Those are the more overt or obvious racism, but there's also ones that are kind of subtle. The type where people make you feel small or inferior because you're a foreigner, because you have a different accent, or just because you think differently. They may be doing that subconsciously, but it's an experience that is very confusing and very hurtful, and one that doesn't really leave you. Then of course there's systemic racism, but that's a different topic for a different video. Now on to the recommendations. Would I advise international students to study in the US? My answer would be, it depends. It depends on what you want to study and what your long-term goals are. When I was in high school, I didn't necessarily think about long-term goals, such as what I wanted to do with my degree, or even if I wanted to stay in the US long-term. All I knew was I wanted to study abroad. I'd say if you just wanted to study abroad, there's other countries where tuition is much cheaper. I know some places in Europe even offer free tuition. Based on my experience and my friends' experiences, those who studied something within the STEM fields are more likely to get work visas, which eventually leads to green cards. So if that's something that you are thinking about, maybe you should consider studying something in the STEM field. I would say that if you also wanted to study education, it would be worth it, especially if you're planning to work in a school that uses an American curriculum. I mean, with any decision, there's always pros and cons, there's always sacrifice. The truth is, immigrating to the US is getting harder and harder, and education is getting more and more expensive. And these two factors are something that you should definitely think about if you're thinking about going to college in the US. That's it, Pansit! Let me know if you want other videos regarding that experience. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and see you next week.